my dear BSed English students. Today we will be having the discussion on one of the great stories in mythology and also part of our topic on the stories of adventure. And today you will meet Aeneas, the great hero of Rome and considered as the founder of Rome. He has been the leader or the hero of Aeneid, the epic of Rome. So let's find out how Virgil had written the story and how his heroism made known in Rome and considered as their national epic. To begin with, I will introduce you with the following characters. Of course, the main character is Aeneas. We also have Dido, the queen of Carthage, and Aeneas' lover. We have Anchises, Aeneas' father, Ascaris, Aeneas' friend and constant companion, and we also have Creusa, Aeneas' first wife, and Iulus, also known as Ascanius, the Aeneas' son. So those are the characters that you will meet throughout the story. As a summary, the story is considered as an epic. It was written by Virgil, and the story would tell about the adventures of Aeneas in search of the land where he is destined to build the city that will one day become the great Roman Empire. So there, after he had attended or fought in the war in Iliad, he will begin his journey on how he could find or come up with a place wherein a great empire will be born. So let me read some of the contents of the story. It is largely influenced by Homer's Iliad and Odyssey because it tells about adventure or heroism. The Aeneid begins halfway through Aeneas' journey as he nears the city of Carthage, ruled over by Dido, who built the city after fleeing from her murderous brother. Over dinner one night, he tells Dido and her court about his travels thus far. Aeneas recounts the story of the fall of Troy and how he has forced to leave the city of his birth with his father Anchises, his son Ascanius, and his wife Creusa. So there, it is a storytelling actually of how Aeneas fight in the Battle of Troy and how the city of Troy became a fallen city. Yes, he was able to fled or uh, to escape the falling city of Troy and to travel with his father, wife, and son. So during the flight, he lost Creusa, whose shade appeared to him, telling him to follow his destiny, which is build a great city and take a royal bride. So that was the suggestion of the wife when the wife was dying. Aeneas and the other Trojan refugees set out to sea, where they had a great many adventure before arriving in Carthage. Believing that their destined land was in Crete, they founded a city there only to be struck down by a plague that forced them to leave. They fought against the Harpies and they cursed their leader, Ciliano. They fled the island of the Cyclops to avoid being slaughtered by the one-eyed beast, and Anchises, the father, died on the island of Drepanum. So there, the adventure, how they fled and how the father had met his death. And then, when Aeneas finished telling Dido his tale, you remember, class, Dido is the lover. She wanted Aeneas to stay on her island to live there and forget about his adventure or his destiny of building a new city. So Dido, realizes that she has become inflamed with love for him, and she pursues him relentlessly. Juno manipulates the situation so that the pair spends the night in a cave where they become lovers. Eventually, however, Aeneas realizes that he has been abandoning his destiny by dallying in Carthage, so he readies his men to leave. So there, another intervention from the god, specifically Juno, also known as Hera. So she's manipulating the situation so Aeneas cannot fulfill his dreams or his adventure of building a new city. Dido has convinced herself that the two are in fact husband and wife, and she is so distraught by her lover's abandonment that she builds a funeral fire and slays herself on it using Aeneas' sword. As Aeneas and his men sail away from Carthage, they see the city aflame, the residents in a panic, but they do not know that the queen has died. So there, Queen Dido is thinking that they are married, they are husband and wife. But then the sad reality, she was abandoned by Aeneas. That's why she committed suicide. She put herself in a funeral fire and then slay herself. As Aeneas and his men sail away from Carthage, they see the city was aflame. So that caused the death of the queen of the city of Carthage. The fleet sails to Drepanum where they engage in celebrations commemorating the 1 year anniversary of Anchises' death. You remember Anchises, the father. And Aeneas receives a prophecy telling him to travel to the underworld to meet with his father. You remember the prophecy? And the underworld, right? So, with the Sibyl of Cumae, Deiphobus and his guide, Aeneas travels through the underworld in search of Anchises. On the journey, Aeneas sees a great many terrible sights, including restless souls who had not received proper burials, the ghosts of the dead babies, and the terrifying fortress Tartarus where the most horrible sinners live in eternal torture. So, class, here, I remember there are only few people who were very successful in going to the underworld, even they are still alive, diba? So, yes, you cannot enter the underworld if you are still alive, because that's uh Charon, the ferryman, would not permit it, as well as Cerberus, the three-headed watchdog. We do not know what Aeneas have done to convince them to let him enter. So, to continue, when he finally locates his father in the beautiful Elysium, so Elysium is a place where heroes are buried, or where the spirits of the heroes go to rest, and Jesus shows him the shades that once reincarnated will become the heroes of the Roman Empire. Aeneas returns to the land of the living, certain of the need to fulfill his destiny, and then sets sail to Laurentum, where he will build his city. When Aeneas and his men arrive in Laurentum, they are greeted warmly by King Latinus, who had heard a prophecy that his daughter Lavinia should be wed to a foreigner. Juno, however, angered by the treaty, sends one of the Furies to stir up trouble. The Fury Alecto starts a war between the Trojans and the Latins by striking anger into the heart of Turnus, Lavinia's other suitor. She also inspires Latinus' wife, Queen Amata, to do all she can to prevent the Trojans from building their city in Laurentum. So that's the next event that took place. There was another character named King Latinus. Then, with a daughter named Lavinia, the prophecy is Lavinia will be married to a foreigner. But then another intervention had happened. Juno intervened. Juno is also known as Hera in Rome, in Greek mythology, and Juno in Rome. So Fury Alecto was one being sent to stir up trouble. And then another suitor named Turnus became mad, and it started the war or the fight. And then we also have another character, Queen Amata, the wife of King Latinus, and her task is to prevent the Trojans from building their city in Laurentum. Turnus calls the Latin men to arms against the foreigners, and a terrible draw-out battle ensues. Aeneas seeks the aid of King Evander, ruler of the poor neighboring kingdom, and the Etruscans who wish to avenge the wrong done by them to them by Mezentius, one of the Turnus supporters. King Evander entrusts his son Pallas to fight a great warrior side, but Pallas is brutally slain by Turnus, a move that Turnus will come to regret. Eventually, even the Latins come to realize the inevitability of Trojan victory. They call for one-on-one duel between Turnus and Aeneas. Just as the duel is about to begin, however, Turnus' sister Juturna inflames the Latin troops. So another character was there. A young Trojan is killed and the battle begins once again. Finally, even Turnus realizes that the only way to end the slaughter is through a duel. So the two meet in the field. Aeneas clearly has the upper hand throughout the battle, even though Turnus is aided by his sister Juturna until Jupiter intervenes and declares that the gods may no longer meddle in mortal affairs. So there, Aeneas strikes Turnus to the ground and the fallen man pleads for his life, or at least for his corpse to be sent back to his father for burial. Although Aeneas is momentarily moved by his adversary's plea, he sees that Turnus has callously slung Pallas' belt across his shoulders, and Aeneas decides not to be merciful. The epic ends with Aeneas plunging his sword through Turnus' heart, and when Turnus' moaning shade fleeing to the underworld. So that's the end of the story. How Aeneas was able to defend the Trojans against a duel, and how the gods and goddesses' intervention had been stopped. So there, I will give you a set work in Google Classroom in relation to the topic that we have. So thank you for having this discussion. Bye-bye.